Hello there guys, Francis Gray here, and in today's video we're going to be making a custom one-off display for Mr. Jason Voorhees, known from the Friday the 13th franchise. I'll see you after this. Okay guys, so in order to start this build I thought I'd give you a quick summary idea. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create like a deep 3D base, and we're going to go ahead and then add some kind of like skeletal zombie face mask that we should be able to get cheap roughly this time of year. Probably looking in the kids section, something that works for Jason's face. Then I'm going to add the iconic ice hockey mask over the zombie face. Then I'm going to coat it all around in like air dry modeling clay to add some kind of bulk to make it look like he's submerged underground. Then we're going to go ahead and add a load of foliage around him, like twigs and vines and stuff like that, to make him look like he's been there for a while. Then we're going to make a Friday the 13th nameplate and add that. And then once it's all looking great, we're going to submerge it into a glass frame, and then we should have a nice display. So without further ado, let's crack on with the build. Okay guys, so I decided to start this build with the iconic Jason hockey mask, which we all know and love. And I bought this from amazon.co.uk, and I think I paid about £8 for this. And it was really good detail to say how cheap it was. And I've seen ones in stores that are way less detailed and they want twice as much money for it. So overall I was impressed with this. So now that we've got our mask, let's go ahead and start prepping it. Step 1. The hockey mask. Okay guys, so the first thing I'm going to do is take the clasps off the mask. Now obviously these attach to the mask and then go around your head to keep the mask in place. But with today's build we're not going to be needing that feature, so I'm going to take them off and put them to one side. And then I'm going to take my trusty cutting rotor tool and I'm going to go ahead and make some edits to the mask to make it a little bit more screen accurate. So I'm just going to go in with a pencil first, and I'm going to map out the top part where Jason gets a machete right on the top of his noggin. And then I'm going to cut away at the left side of the mask, and then that just goes a long way to make this look more weathered and battle damaged.
You get the idea.
Okay, so as you can see that's a lot more weathered. So now that we've done the basics to the mask, let's go ahead and work on Jason's face. Step 2. Jason's face. Okay guys, so I went to my local Asda store, and inside there's like a George subsection. And I had a look at the Halloween masks, and I wanted a zombie mask originally, but the closest I could find was a degraded mummy mask. So, but I think this will work brilliantly. So, as you can see there, it comes with some metallic holographic eyes. Now, those will have to come out, but I'm sure I can put them to one side and maybe use them for another project one day. So yeah, so just cutting the clasps off. We don't need the elastic string on the back, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a speed up montage now, and we'll just show you how we progress. Yep, I will keep them for later. So for the next part, I'm going to go ahead and recreate the eyes. So I just found this plastic blue ball that can be cut in half, and as you can see there, that'll work pretty well as a basic eyeball. So yeah, so just going to go ahead and cut it in half, and then we're going to go ahead and glue it in place. Well, so far, so good. Okay guys, so for the next part I need to go ahead and make this a lot more steadier, so I need to go ahead and fill this out. So I'm going to go in with some of this stuff, which is expanding foam, and I'm just going to basically give a simple layer inside, let it expand, and then leave it a few hours to fully dry.
Early the next morning.
Okay guys, that seems to have worked beautifully, but as you can see there, we have a little bit of overspill, or overhang if you like. So I'm going to go in with my trusty blade, and I'm going to take my time and I'm going to shave off the excess, and then hopefully we've got this nice and flat. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to go in with some milliput, which is a 2-part clay that you mix equal measures of, and then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to sculpt some extra details that are missing. So I'm going to blend out where the eyes are, so it's not so prevalent that we just stuck half a ball in there. And yeah, I'm going to smooth it all out, add some the detail back in with some sculpting tools, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit extra to like the front face and teeth, etc. Just make it look a little bit more zombie-ish rather than mummy-ish. Step 3. Making a box. Okay guys, so here is a frame that I bought from a charity shop. Now, when I originally saw this, I thought this would work really good with the Jason mask, but once I got it back home, I then realised that, yeah, that hockey mask and the Jason face is not going to fit in this ever, really.
Nope.
So instead of wasting it, I decided to basically take it all apart, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a new wooden frame for it, well, slash box I suppose, which should house this a lot better. So I'm going to keep the front of this original frame. I'm going to use the glass, and I'm not too sure yet, but I might use the border as well. I'll see how I get on with that. Okay, so after finding some nice sturdy wood that I think would be have the right depth for the face and the mask, I went ahead and took some basic measurements, and then over to my circular saw, and I'm going to take my time and cut it all up and make a nice frame.
What follows is a brief construction montage. We hope you enjoyed this brief construction montage.
Okay guys, so after a lot of wood filler and a lot of sanding, here we have the beginnings of a nice frame box. So, is it deep enough? Well, I hope so. I hope my measuring skills are up to par. Let's go ahead and see how we get on. Step 4. Setting the scene. Okay guys, so the first thing I did was I took the mummy face mask and put inside the new freshly made box, and then I added the Jason Voorhees mask on top. Now as you can see there, with the way that it is at the moment, it's still too big. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut off a couple of inches, probably 2, off the mummy mask, and then that should help that sit more flush. So just going to go back in with my trusty saw blade, and I'm going to take my time and I'm going to chop some of his face off.
Face.
Okay, so now that that's nicely trimmed, let's go ahead and see if it'll fit inside. So it's a bit of a tight squeeze, but I think this will work out nice. Okay, so now that we know that this will fit in place rather nicely, I'm going to go in with a wood glue mixture / PVA that I created. And this is going to go on the back of the foam, which will end up keeping the mask in place. And then I also need to start thinking about adding some bulk around the sides to emulate the soil growing up over the Jason's face. So in order to do that, I'm going to use some off-cut bits of foam from past projects, and then just cut them to shape, stick them in with the same glue, and then we're just going to leave it 24 hours to fully dry.
24 hours later.
So now that that's all had time to fully dry, for the next stage we're going to go into the spray booth, and I'm going to get some grey primer. Now this sprayed onto the actual foam will melt the foam a little bit, but this isn't foam that's going to be detailed, this is just bulk to sculpt over later on, so I'm fine with that. So yeah, so just going to take my time, give it a couple of coats of grey primer, get into all the nooks and crannies, and then we can think about cracking on with the next part of the build.
6.5 hours later.
So now that the grey primer is fully dry, for the next stage we're going to go in with a gloss black from the aerosol can, and we're going to do the exact same again, but this time with it being black, it's going to get into all the nooks and crannies, and then that's going to make painting Jason's face a lot easier, because we don't have to add dark tones later, we can just add highlights. And obviously the black will be a good paint job for the wooden box frame.
5 hours later.
So now that that's painted, I'm going to do a quick test fit, and unfortunately the bridge of Jason's mask is just a little bit too high. It's the face underneath seems to be pushing up, and I don't think the glass will go over the top. Nope. So I'm going to go in with some rotary tool, and I'm going to take the bridge of his nose off, and I'm also going to take a little bit of his chin off, and then this we can model over later on, and all these details are going to be hidden under the hockey mask anyway, so no big deal. So yeah, so just going to go ahead and do a little bit of light editing until we can get this fully submerged. Okay, so to model over these, I'm just going to go in with some simple white wood filler, and I'm just going to go over the nose and the chin, leave to dry, and then we've got a hard surface that we can paint over later.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
And yes, you guessed it, we are back in the spray booth. I'm going to go in with yet again more gloss black, and I'm going to go over the areas that we've just modelled over with the white wood filler. Basically just so everything's the same base tone when we add paint in a moment. Step 5. Painting a face. So in order to kick this all off, I'm going to start off with a general dry brush of a medium brown, and then this is going to get across some of those undead leather skinish kind of textures that, well, an aged old zombie corpse would have. Hello. So for the next part, I'm going to go in with some clear UV resin, and I'm going to paint a thin layer over the eyeballs, and then that will help sell the illusion that these are real eyes. And while I'm at it, I might as well do the teeth and the holes where the nostrils should be. Step 6. Weathering the mask. Okay guys, so for this part I'm basically just going to go in with some various paints, and I'm just going to make this mask look a lot more aged and used. So we're going to go in with like black washes, brown washes, and we're going to go in with some deep dark reds to emulate where blood was spilt, where Jason was attacked in some of the previous films, like a machete wound on the top of his head, etc. Just go a long way to making this look a lot more grimy and neglected. Step 7. Building the scene. So now that the face is painted and the mask is looking a lot better, we need to go ahead and add A to B. So I'm going to go in with just some regular hot glue, and I'm going to add it to various parts of the hockey mask, and then I'm going to gently put it on top of the zombie face, and then we're going to leave to dry, and then we can crack on with some of the next parts of the build. So we need to go ahead and add a little bit more bulk around him. So I'm going to go in with some of this stuff, which is some expanding foam, and we're going to square it into the corners, working our way in. And this, once left to dry, this should make a lot of the ground that we need to recreate. I've had enough. I don't want to feel stuck under the rug, all my problems that I shove.
I got nightmares in my head. I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much.
The next morning.
Okay guys, so that has worked rather well, but unfortunately it has gone a little bit too far forward. So I'm going to have to go ahead and I'm going to have to trim a lot of this off. So yeah, so I'm just going to back in with a trusty blade, and I'm going to shave off what I can. Like the end's inside for me, but let's be really real, anxiety can foggy all this stuff. I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to focus good enough. Nothing's really clear, sometimes it could be a little tough. I just need to feel like the end's inside for me, but let's be really real, anxiety can foggy all this stuff.
It sucks when you finally feel like giving up. Oh God, no luck. Everything feels like you're sticky stuck. I'm lost.
Okay, so with that expanding foam, unfortunately it's left a lot of sticky residue marks on the sides of the frame. Now we really don't want this in the long term, so I'm going to have to take my time, go in with a very sharp chisel, and I'm going to try and scrape off as much as I can, but unfortunately this will take some of the paint off, so we'll have to go ahead and work around that. So going in with some fine grit sandpaper, some sanding blocks, try and get it as smooth as possible, and then when we go to repaint this later, hopefully all that will be hidden away. Step 8. Air drying clay. Okay guys, so now that we've got the bulk of the ground ready, for the next stage we need to go ahead and make a surface layer that we can paint and model over. So in order to do that, I'm going to go in with a pack of this stuff, which is air drying modeling clay, and then it's just going to be pushed out into equal measures, just make it nice and smooth, try and get it on a little bit on the flat side, and we might have to blend it all in for a little bit of water. Now this unfortunately will take a couple of days to fully dry, which is time I don't really have left to spare if I'm going to try and get this video out in the month of October. So hopefully with the help of a trusty hairdryer we can speed the process up a little bit, and we can make this all one surface layer that we can build up upon. So while we go ahead and we leave all that to fully dry, we might as well be working on the next part of the build, which is the nameplate. Step 9. The nameplate. Okay guys, so I started off by doing a Google image search for Friday the 13th movie logo, and then I changed the colours to it to just a normal black text on a white background in Clip Studio Paint, and then I imported that into another software called Matter Control, which turned it into a 3D logo, and then I just went ahead and recreated a simple rectangle base with outside frame to attach to it. Added it all together, and now that we've got our STL file, let's get printing. Yep, I think this will work perfect.
Soon after.
Okay guys, so here we are once again in the spray booth with some grey primer, and we're going to go ahead and give it a once over quick coat, and then once that's dried we're going to go in with some, you guessed it, gloss black, and we're going to match it just like we did the box frame.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if this will fit rather nicely, and yep, I think it will. It's unfortunately though, the clay's not completely level, so as you can see that's a bit wobbly, so we're going to have to go ahead and add some more air dry modeling clay to help level that out. Okay guys, so at this point I decided to go in with the back end of a paintbrush, and I'm just going over the modelling clay while it's all still well, moist, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do like a dappling effect all the way around, so it all looks like it's all like matching, and this should go a little bit towards making it look a little bit more like a soil texture rather than just a clay texture. So I hope that made some kind of sense.
Nope.
Okay guys, so I'm now going to have to leave this for a couple of days to fully dry, and then hopefully we can start slinging some paint on it.
One eternity later.
So now that that's going to take a couple of days to fully dry, for the next stage we might as well go ahead and start painting up the nameplate. So we're going to start with just some regular white from Model Air. And for the next part I'm going to go in with some gory red from Game Color, and we're going to go ahead and add the blood spatter from the logo. Okay, so that has turned out rather nice, so now let's go ahead and add it to the main project. Step 10. Mud and textures. So before we go ahead and add the logo, we need to go ahead and darken down all this white, because at the moment it looks like Jason was buried in a snowstorm rather than classic dirt from a forest. So yeah, so I'm just going to go in with some regular black from Model Air, and I'm just going to take my time and make sure I don't accidentally go over the mask in any way, and just basically just try and darken and dull this down so we can then start building from dark tones to lighter tones. Okay guys, so now that this is fully painted, I'm going to run some super glue on the back and I'm going to put it in place. So now that that's in there, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some regular PVA glue and I'm going to go ahead and spread it all over the dark black areas. And now I'm going to go in with some sand scatter from Jarvis. Okay guys, we'll go ahead and leave that a couple of hours to fully dry.
Eventually.
Okay, so after using a makeup brush to wipe away some of the excess pebbles, we went ahead and then cleaned it all up, and then we can crack on with the next stage, which is Operation Cleanup. So there's no point leaving all this to go to waste, so same again, just going to put it back into its original container and then we can put this back on the shelf for a rainy day. Okay, so now that that PVA glue is dried nicely, for the next stage I'm going to go in with a mahogany brown airbrush paint, and I'm going to mix that with some slightly watered down PVA glue, and then I'm going to paint over the pebbles, and then that'll go a long way to make this look more like surface layer of mud rather than pebbles. Step 11. Woodland textures. Okay, so for the next stage we need to go ahead and recreate the bottom of a typical forest floor. So we're going to go ahead and have like sticks and vines and stuff like that. So in order to achieve that effect, I'm going to go in with this stuff, which is this twine, which once cut and then separated, you can then dip it into some watered down PVA glue, add a little bit of brown paint if you like, just to give it a little bit more of a colour shift, I suppose, and then just take your time and apply it in and around the area and then leave to dry, and then that should make this look like vines. Now the tricky part of this part for this build is I wanted some vines to be working the way like in and out of the various holes of Jason's hockey mask. So I thought that would be a nice little cool element to really get across that he's been buried in the ground for a long time, and for some reason he's opened his eyes and he's ready to go again.
3 hours later.
Okay, so that is looking a lot more better. So we're not finished yet, this is just the vine part of it. We all know vines just don't stay on the top surface, that goes in and out of the ground, so we need to go ahead and recreate a little bit more coverage. So I'm just going in with the rest of the coloured PVA glue, and I'm just going to make sure it's all nicely solid and stuck down in all the corners, because when we go ahead and seal this later on behind glass, if any of this comes apart, we're not going to be able to get at it, well, rather, we're not going to get to it easily, but if at all really. So yeah, so for now I really need to make sure that these are all stuck in place and they're not going to go anywhere.
Later, in the void.
So for a few months now I've been collecting these wooden parts of you get on grapes. I believe they're called bunch stems, and I've just been keeping them in a tub on my kitchen windowsill and letting the sun basically let dry them out, and then they become very putrefied like wood. Now these will work great for mimicking like all those little tiny little twigs etc. on the bottom of like what you'll see on like a forest floor. So these are going to be brilliant. So in order to make these workable, so I'm going to bring in an old unused blender. Now this was gifted to me via a friend. They didn't need it anymore, and I'm not going to be exactly making milkshakes with this. So this is fantastic for hobby related, because anything I need to chop up into little bits, in it goes. So yeah, so I'm just going to force these in a little bit at a time, blend them, tip it out, rinse and repeat until we've got a nice mulchy kind of floor base. And then once that's done, we go ahead and add some PVA glue to the mixture, stir it really nice and thick, and then we'll apply it onto the base wherever we need it. We don't want to go too over the top with this. We just need to scatter it around so we can still see like the underneath, like the mud and the vines, etc. So just take time, make sure you get into all the little nooks and some of the nooks and crannies, but not completely cake it everywhere. And just leave it to dry, and then we should be having a good start to a new forest floor. Step 12. Critters. Okay guys, so for the next part, now I've got this little model of a worm. Now I've repainted this off camera just to save a little bit of time, but basically in a nutshell he was attached to this part here, so he was constantly like that. So I carefully cut him away, so now in theory we can cut it in two and we can have two separate worms, and we're going to add him somewhere in and around this area.
10 seconds later.
Okay guys, so I'm just going to go in with a little drill bit, and I'm going to make a little channel hole, and then we can glue this guy into here, and then we'll find somewhere for the other one. Okay guys, so they are a little bit subtle, but if you go looking for hidden details, you will spot them. So we've got a worm protruding out the earth here, and we've got a worm protruding out the earth here as well. So for the next stage, I'm going to go in with some orange rust, and I'm going to add a little bit into the airbrush, and I'm going to do a few highlights to some of this foliage just to separate it and make it look a little bit more visually interesting. And now I'm going to go in with some regular black from Model Air, and we're going to go ahead and darken the corners, so when it looks, the eye looks at it visually, the eye focuses on the foreground rather than the background. And lastly, I'm going to go in with a tiny bit of dead white from Game Colour. So the reason I decided to go in with more white was purely just to add a bit of a contrast from the browns that surround the mask. I didn't want it to get lost visually, so this little bit of white just gets across a little bit more that the hockey mask is separate from the surroundings. And now that that's done, I'm going to go in with some more UV resin, and I'm going to give a slight one coat over the worms just to give them that wet slimy look that worms have. And once that's done, I just go in with a UV torch. And seeing as we're adding little critters, I thought, seeing as he's a decomposing zombie in the ground, we are going to need some maggots, and these are going to go around his right eye, so it's left eye towards his right eye. So these are just going to be nestled nicely in and around that area, which will get a little bit more of a creep factor to it. So yeah, so in order to make these, I just went in with Abe's epoxy modelling clay, and then just rolled out a little tiny bit in my hands, and then used a sharp cocktail stick and then rolled the clay in a straight line, and then just run that up and down, and then that makes a nice little maggot. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and leave these to fully harden, and then we can go ahead and paint them.
Soon after.
Okay, so now that these have been left to dry, I went in with a basic yellow and give them a base coat. And the idea is we're going to glue them in place with regular super glue, and we're going to attach them around his right eye, so his left eye towards right eye to him. And then they're going to, once they're glued in place, we're going to go in and we're going to give it a bit of a darker wash, maybe with like a watered down orange. Leave that to dry, and then we'll go over with a dry brush highlight of a off-white, and then that should really make these look a bit more like maggots. And then once that dries, then we can always go in with a nice gloss varnish to really make them look like they're fresh and wriggling about. Step 13, adding a frame. So now we're back in the garage and we're ready to add our frame. So I'm going to go in with just some regular Gorilla Glue, and then we're going to go ahead and make a nice straight line on all the surfaces of the frame, and then we'll go ahead and nestle the glass part of the frame in place, and then we can go ahead and clamp it with 4 clamps, and then we can go ahead and leave it to dry. And while that's drying, for the next stage I'm going to go in with 4 of these, which are felt pad sets, and we're going to carefully drill some channel holes in the underside of the frame, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put them in place, make sure everything lines up, and then we can go back in with a little bit more Gorilla Glue and then fasten these in place, and this will help protect the bottom of the case when we go ahead and display it in the future. So after doing all that, there was a few little scuffs on the paintwork of the frame. So I masked off the front, and then I went over with more gloss black, and then I left that to fully dry, and then I went over with another coating of clear gloss varnish, and then after that all I had to do was peel it all away, and I believe it's done.
Jason, my special boy. Do you know what your gift is? No matter what they do to you, you cannot die. You can never die. You've just been sleeping, honey. But now, the time has come to wake up. Mommy has something she wants you to do.
Okay guys, so here it is, all finished. Nice display for Mr. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. And me myself, I think it's turned out really nice. I'm really happy with the finished results. So if you've enjoyed this video, I know it's been a little bit on the long side. We went well past the 30-minute runtime mark that I originally set for this, but there was a lot of steps and I really wanted to show as much as possible, so hopefully I could influence other people to go ahead and make their own versions, hopefully. But yeah, I'm happy with the finished result and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please slap that like button. Share on Facebook and Twitter, because it helps new people find the YouTube channel, which I'm always appreciative. Thank you for any help. If you have any comments, comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And please smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future builds. And if you want to be a really awesome viewer, please take 5 minutes to check out my Patreon page, where with a bit of help from yourselves, we can go ahead and make these videos full-time rather than part-time, which means more videos for you and less hassle for me. So yeah, so once again, I'm Francis Gray and this is the grave of Mr. Jason Voorhees. I'll see you in the next build.